Welcome back to our channel, a cozy and familiar corner where we gather to share our enduring love for the stories that have shaped our afternoons for decades. Let us explore the shifting tides of Port Charles together and examine the fascinating, sometimes turbulent, real-world journeys of the stars we have watched grow over the years. For those of us who have dedicated a significant portion of our lives to following the intricate, sweeping narratives of General Hospital, the actors who portray our favorite characters often become a surrogate extension of our own families. We have watched them navigate the perilous waters of fictional mob wars, devastating romances, and miraculous resurrections. Over the decades, we have developed a profound, almost protective attachment to these faces that grace our screens day after day. Therefore, when a legacy actor decides to step away from the canvas to pursue an entirely different path, it invariably sends a shockwave through our dedicated community. Such is the case with Chad Duell, the young man who quite literally grew up before our eyes while masterfully embodying the complex, deeply conflicted character of Michael Corinthos for the past 15 years. The recent news that Chad has decided to leave the familiar, structured world of daytime television to plunge into the unpredictable, fiercely competitive realm of the music industry is a development that has left many of us grappling with a profound sense of loss and confusion. What is perhaps most distressing about this transition is not merely the departure of a beloved actor, but the remarkably harsh, unforgiving nature of the public reaction that has followed him out the door. It is deeply troubling to witness the phenomenon of an actor being relentlessly bullied and mocked by the very people who once claimed to be his most ardent supporters. Chad, seeking to forge a new creative identity, has adopted the musical moniker Duell. Yes, for those who might still be catching up on the latest developments, Chad Duell is now making music under the name Duell, and I assure you, it is not an unfortunate typographical error. It is a deliberate, artistic choice, a shedding of the Corinthos skin to reveal something entirely new. Yet, a vocal segment of the General Hospital viewership has reacted to this reinvention with a startling level of vitriol. We must ask ourselves, why does an actor's desire to explore a new creative avenue provoke such intense hostility? The answer, I believe, lies in the deeply ingrained parasocial relationships we form with these performers. When Chad becomes Duell, a portion of the audience feels a profound sense of abandonment, as if a member of their own family has inexplicably changed their name and walked away from the dinner table. This sense of abandonment is only magnified when we examine the specific artistic output that Chad has bravely shared with the world. He recently released a new track on Spotify entitled Static in the Quiet Room. The very title evokes a sense of haunting isolation, a disruption of peace, and a lingering, uncomfortable noise in a space that should be tranquil. Chad took to Instagram to share the deeply personal inspiration behind this work, explaining that the song is about the weird feeling you get when you sense someone you were once incredibly close to slowly drifting away. He eloquently described the agonizing experience of realizing that while the person is still physically present, the emotional intimacy has evaporated. It is, in his words, like trying to hold on to something that has already begun to fade into the ether. As a literary critic and a longtime observer of the human condition as portrayed on soap operas, I find this thematic exploration to be incredibly poignant and universally relatable. Have we not all, in our many years on this earth, experienced the quiet, devastating tragedy of a fading connection? What is truly fascinating, however, is the undeniable parallel between Chad's real-world musical exploration and the fictional life of the character he left behind. When Chad sings about the agony of a fading relationship, a feeling of profound distance from someone who is standing right in front of him, is he not perfectly articulating the internal emotional landscape of Michael Corinthos? For 15 years, we watched Michael struggle with the suffocating, often toxic love of his father, Sonny Corinthos, and his mother, Carly. We watched him desperately try to maintain his moral compass while anchored to a family steeped in organized crime. The static in the quiet room could very well represent the constant underlying tension of Michael's existence in Port Charles, the unspoken betrayals, the lingering resentments, and the slow, painful realization that the people he loves most are the ones who cause him the greatest harm. It is a profound irony that in attempting to step away from Michael Corinthos, Chad Duell has created a piece of art that so perfectly encapsulates the character's deepest psychological wounds. Despite the emotional depth of his new endeavor, the critics have been merciless. The internet, with its cloak of anonymity, often strips people of their basic decency, and the comments directed at Chad have been nothing short of bullying. One particularly cynical commentator took to social media to proclaim, "Looks like Chad Duell left General Hospital and became Dooley," which is information I was absolutely not prepared for. While one might appreciate the mild sarcasm in that statement, other critiques have crossed the line into outright cruelty. Another reviewer cruelly wrote that their first Dooley experience almost ruined their hearing aids, and that the newest track only made them check to see if their hearing aids were malfunctioning. As an older viewer, I understand the physical realities of aging and the reliance on devices like hearing aids. But to weaponize this experience as a punchline to tear down a young artist is deeply disheartening. It lacks the grace and wisdom that we, as a mature audience, should be imparting to the younger generation. We must remember that Chad Duell spent a decade and a half delivering compelling, emotionally exhausting performances day in and day out. He gave us 15 years of dedication, memorizing pages of dialogue daily and anchoring some of the most pivotal storylines in General Hospital's modern history. When he states that he is experimenting with music and trying to find his own unique style, and that this new track is one of his favorite creations to date, he deserves our respect, or at the very least, our polite indifference if the music is not to our taste. We do not have to love the sounds produced by Dooley, but we should absolutely respect the courage it takes for an artist to step out of a highly successful, comfortable box to try something completely different. How many of us, after 15 years in a secure profession, would have the bravery to start over from scratch in a field where failure is highly probable and public scrutiny is guaranteed? This brings us to the inevitable question that is currently dominating the discourse among longtime fans. What happens next? There is a growing, palpable obsession within the General Hospital community regarding the potential return of Michael Corinthos. If this musical journey as Dooley is merely a temporary hiatus, a necessary creative palate cleanser for an exhausted actor, how will his eventual return impact the canvas of Port Charles? The narrative void left by Michael's absence is significant, and the writers are undoubtedly grappling with how to address the shifting power dynamics within the Corinthos and Quartermain families without their central heir. The prompt suggests that a potential return could validate new plotline obsessions, and I wholeheartedly agree. The anticipation of Michael's return is creating a vacuum that is ripe for dramatic exploitation. Imagine, if you will, the storyline potential if Chad Duell were to return to the role after this period of intense, personal, musical exploration. He would not be returning as the exact same actor who left. He would bring with him the emotional resonance of having stepped into the unknown, of having faced public ridicule, and of having channeled his vulnerabilities into a new art form. If Michael Corinthos were to return to Port Charles with a similar sense of world weariness, perhaps harboring a new, darker edge born of isolation, much like the static Chad sings about it, would breathe entirely new life into a character that was arguably becoming creatively stagnant. The obsession with his return is not just about missing a familiar face. It is about the tantalizing possibility of a character rebirth. Furthermore, the very real backlash Chad is facing as Dooley could brilliantly inform his performance upon a hypothetical return. Michael Corinthos has always been a character judged by the court of public opinion within the town of Port Charles, constantly scrutinized for his association with Sonny. Chad now knows intimately what it feels like to be harshly judged and misunderstood by a massive audience. This lived experience could translate into a breathtakingly raw, nuanced performance, elevating Michael from a legacy soap character to a deeply complex, tragic figure who is entirely disillusioned with the expectations placed upon him by his family and his community. The blurring of the line between the actor's real-world trials and the character's fictional tribulations is the very essence of compelling daytime television. As we continue to watch this saga unfold, both on our television screens and on the digital platforms where Duell now resides, I urge our community of seasoned viewers to lead by example. We have watched generations of characters make mistakes, seek redemption, and reinvent themselves. We have shed tears over their tragedies and celebrated their triumphs. We must extend that same profound empathy to the actors who bring these stories to life. Bullying a young man because he wishes to sing rather than act is beneath the dignity of an audience that understands the complexities of the human heart as well as we do. We should champion the spirit of artistic exploration, even when the resulting art does not resonate with our personal sensibilities. In conclusion, the transformation of Chad Duell into Duell is a fascinating study in the perils of artistic reinvention and the intense, sometimes toxic nature of modern fandom. While the music may not be to everyone's liking, the emotional authenticity behind his work, the agonizing feeling of a fading connection, is undeniably powerful and deeply resonant with the history of the character he left behind. Whether he continues to navigate the turbulent waters of the music industry or eventually finds his way back to the familiar, comforting embrace of Port Charles, Chad Duell has left an indelible mark on General Hospital. Let us watch his next chapter unfold with the grace, patience, and understanding that comes from a lifetime of appreciating a truly good story, knowing that in the world of soap operas, the door is always open for a dramatic and unforgettable return.